My name is Melissa Rackham. I have laryngitis and I'm a photographer and I'm a practicing fine artist. The closest exhibit I have right now is in Uniontown, Washington, and that is my ghost sign exhibit. Looking back at the sort of ephemeral quality of advertisements from the 20th century and how they were put up to be something very temporary, and yet they have become something lasting in many cases. There's one actually here in town that's in a bakery that was hidden behind sheetrock and construction materials, and they sort of excavated and found it, and it's in pristine condition, and it's 100 years old. A ghost sign that's very faded with a brand new sign next to it. I think there's something really beautiful about that. The old and the new, that intersection. Photographing abandoned places and old buildings for 22 years. You know, I think they're fascinating, and I think once you become interested and once you start looking for them, you see them everywhere. Once you notice them, I think it becomes a little bit of an obsession. I see the sign from a distance usually, and I end up making 700 trips around a block or up an alley into other areas trying to find the best perch, I guess, if you will. Really what it comes down to is I eat, breathe, and sleep photography. I've been doing this my entire life. I took my first photo class when I was 16 in high school and knew it was the love of my life.
Oh, I think it's great. Yeah. Yeah, I like how she uses the wax and different techniques to protect the pictures.
I like how she takes something old and gives it like a whole new look. It's really creative.
It's great. I love it.
What's your favorite?
So far, it's the New Orleans one right back here. Oh, the New Orleans too. Yeah. Yeah, I like it.
Mounted the images onto a pine plywood, which was stained, and then I used encaustic medium, which is wax, beeswax, and Damar resin. I brush it on, I go back and I use a heat gun to smooth out certain areas, but it's a long, arduous process of just trial and error. The great thing is if you don't like it, you just heat the wax up, melt it all off, scrape it off, and start all over again. Well, particularly with this body of work, I think you have to see it in person because there's a tactility that comes with it. You can smell the stain and the pine, you smell the beeswax, you can run your fingers over it. It's very textural. They're really hard to photograph. For my website, for instance, trying to photograph them in a way that it still allowed the texture to show through, but not to make them look too flat or too waxy, if you will. I think you have to see it in person because it's a completely different experience. Viewing a lower resolution image that's essentially illuminated on a screen versus seeing it in person, and the textures and the tonalities are completely different. Really what it comes down to is mostly old structures. I like the play of this idea of space and interesting places that are sort of a connection to the past, and sometimes the intersection between the man-made and the natural. Antiquated signage. I mean, we live in an area where, outside of Spokane, there's a lot in Spokane, but all the little towns that surround us, they still have main streets. Love it, love it. I'm addicted to Instagram. I check my Instagram no less than probably 20 times a day. Flickr is great. I use Facebook also. I'm a Facebook junkie. I'm on there all the time. It's a great way for us to share what we're working on, what we're learning, shows that we're going to, things that I learn something new all the time. And it's because social media is so immediate, and it gives you, especially with Instagram, it's essentially a handful of words and photos. What could be better to a photographer, really? You know, the old and the new and that intersection, they're together all the time and they coexist. And it's not a conflict and it's not a tension. There's something really beautiful about that.